Fourth and final time. Starting off with the monthly time frame. You got 23 days left in the monthly candle. All right, YouTube, I'm not playing any music. You have 23 days left, which means that a couple things. The first thing I've noticed, or I'm sure we've all noticed, is the fact that we close below the range here. All right, we close below this range or above this range here, which means that we're breaking out of the range, right? That's the monthly time frame. Now, the thing about the monthly time frame is that there's not really, I'll say, a confirmed resistance due to the fact that it did create all-time highs, right? So you close above the most recent. The only data that you really have here to the left is the fact that there are minor levels to the left here sitting at 2075, which means that that's like the next minor resistance. Aside from that, there's no like strong bearish candle to the left anywhere else on a chart showing you signs that it was going to reject off of 2190 or 2180, like whatever it was. I'm not too sure what it was again, but something like that, right? There was no like, there wasn't this form here or anything like that. So looking left, there was no like major resistance, right? They're just minor levels to the left. So with that being said, like we don't have like a strong resistance being formed yet, but what I do understand is that if you take a close look at the monthly, right? The monthly closed above, and then this candle right here spent the first couple of days this month creating a top wick, and then started to reject, which means that any given point, this could be, or in 23 days, if you close bearish especially, you could be forming a resistance here, which will then mean that this is the range you're in right now. This is the new range we're in. So if we can anticipate that price will likely close bearish on the monthly and 23 days, then this is the range we're sitting in. And these are the ranges you want to play between 2038 and 20 or 1991, right? Which is a pretty wide range, I'll say. It's a decent range. It's enough of a range for you to grab, obviously, positions into. Now, this is just the monthly outlook. So it has nothing to do with today's analysis, really, or to do with today's charts at all. I think the monthly analysis had a lot more to do with today's charts on the 1st of December. And then, obviously, the Monday that we came back, because that was the weekend after the all-time highs, right? So, but aside from that, I believe that obviously, or not to believe, but we know that, like, you know, the monthly has nothing to do with today's analysis, right? It's just two different things, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind. So overall, yes, like we are more out, like technically right now, like overall, I get it, we're still bullish, obviously, right? But in terms of like the current monthly, right now we're currently bearish in the current monthly. Now let's drop down to the weekly. And as I drop down to the smaller time frames, you will see things start to click a lot better in terms of the daily, weekly, and monthly. They'll all start to align in a way. I also understand that there's news here in 5 minutes, which I will take a pause during the analysis to watch and then go right back to the analysis. We're not taking trades at 8:15, so don't stress that out. But yeah, that's the monthly. Now dropping down to the weekly, bro. I need this. Wait, chat. Do you guys hear this music or not? Like, because I need it for my own sake. Like, you guys don't hear that, right? Chat, my. Oh, you guys hear it? All right. How do? All right, now you guys should be able to hear it. You shouldn't be able to hear it now. I should be able to hear it. All right, cool. All right. Yeah, as long as I hear it, that's all that matters. Because I might get copyright for playing copyright-free music, but I want to hear it because I just need to hear it do my analysis. But yeah, that's the monthly. And then this is the weekly. All right, so the weekly looks like we are going to be closing. Well, I don't know yet, but we have 2 days and 9 hours left. If we do end up closing back into the range here, which is this resistance to the left here, then possibly we are making our way down towards the bottom of the range, which in this case, if this is your resistance to the left that you had marked up here on price, you close below 2026 by Friday. Next week's candle should make its way down towards 1920, which seems pretty crazy and seems pretty wild, but really, all that price is printing is the same thing it printed looking left, which is you're looking at this right here, you're looking at this right here, you're looking at this right here. Every time price broke back into the range or rejected off that resistance, it made its way down. So if these candles to the left were able to reject off of that resistance after major bullish trends here, right, off of 2040 to come back down to the range, then I don't see why we shouldn't be able to do so as well, especially if you close in 2 days here, especially after breaking the highs, right? Because if these counts did it without breaking the highs, without grabbing liquidity, and this grab liquidity, you close back into the range by Friday, Monday should be pretty interesting, or next week should be pretty interesting, especially if you close below this range like this. Because then next week you'll have range to drive down back into the range, and you'll feel that range coming down, which is pretty crazy, right? It's like we're far away from that area, and right now I get it. Overall, we're still bullish. I get that, right? But in terms of things starting to shift, you may start to see a shift very soon here. So pay attention to the weekly close this week by Friday. But yeah, that goes to show like the monthly as well. The monthly will then have like I think 14 days left, or no, it will have like 21 days left into the month after the week ends, and the weekly would then be closing back into the range, and the weekly would then show that we're breaking back into the range, which then will break you back in the ranges of 1936, which then will make the monthly possibly come down to break last month's low. And if last month's low gets broken, January, February, March should be pretty interesting for you. But yeah, that's the weekly. Now dropping down to a daily. Daily today is pretty nice too. I've noticed that you kind of closed back in this range here. So obviously you closed a couple days ago, not just yesterday, but you closed on Tuesday, right after Monday's candle here. You had this major push up, and then you had a huge rejection on Sunday's opening, and then you closed back into this area here. And yesterday, price did nothing different as well. It kind of did the same exact thing. My concern about there's news in a minute and a half here. My concern about the daily, and the reason why I believe it didn't drive down yesterday, is simply because there wasn't enough liquidity being grabbed. There wasn't enough of a top wick, right? Because overall, you can say this is the range we broke back into. And I'll assume that if you were to grab liquidity on price, it would have been within these wick areas here to the left, which would have been here, here, and like possibly even here, right? Like or possibly even here within this area. So I would say the average area I was assuming to tap yesterday was a bit higher. I was sort of expecting 2048 to get tapped. So the daily take can do a couple of things. Obviously, you have news here coming up in 30 seconds, but it can either break the daily highs first before making its way down, or it can just flip and make its way down, obviously, right? So I'm gonna see what news does here in about a couple seconds here, but I honestly don't think it's anything too major. Like I believe it will bring in volume for price for sure in 14 seconds here, but I don't think we're gonna have any major moves just yet. But 8:30 to 9:10, that'll be your major push today, and you see a nice trend in a pretty decent position you can grab. But let me just see how news plays out here in about right now. Should bring in volume for sure, right? It's just in terms of direction, I don't know if you'll have direction till after 9. All right, so you're pushing up. Nice, lovely. Okay, cool. Yeah, so anyways, back to what we were doing here. So yeah, I wanted to see here if we could possibly come up today and break the highs, tapping you into this box here. Because if we can tap 2050, we can take wick entries there. Wick entries at 2050 down, because look, if you pay close attention to the ranges we're in, right? So this is the resistance that we want to tap into, right around, I'll say, this range here to the left. Because look, if you look at this current structure on price, right, you kind of got to break it up in a couple parts, which is going to be obviously one is you're obviously still on a major uptrend, right? But two, you're starting also to reject, right? So you had this move, and then you had this move here. And if you look at the current move we're in, you look at the current ranges, you're going to see that there's a minor resistance to the left right around here. Or let me just delete this line here. There's a minor resistance to the left in this yellow box here, which is going to be right around here. And there's also some type of support down here, which means that this is the range we're breaking back into, right? Which means that then this is the range you're looking to break back into and fill for your push. Sorry, why is my aux cord stuck here? Alright, anyways, yeah, so this is the range you're kind of breaking back into, right? So I would assume that today's price should be able to fill the bottom of the range. I would assume that you'll see a candle looking like this on the daily. But the concern is right now, are we going to have enough of a top wick to drive down, or when is that top wick going to be enough? So I'm looking left at my levels here, and it makes sense if the most recent resistance gets taps first, which is also the break of the daily highs. So any given point, since price is already like bullish for the day, right? We're already coming up, but there's no bottom wick yet. How far would we drive up first before driving down? So I would assume that if you didn't grab a top wick yesterday to drive down, right? Because if yesterday's top wick was enough, it would have been driven down by now, right? But we're still coming up to re-break the highs here, which I then would believe that before making the move down, you'll see the break of the highs first, which means that you have range now still going up towards 46 areas, which means a couple things here. You could take buys going up towards that area first if that's what I'm anticipating, right? We could take buys towards 2045, or we can wait for 2045 to get tapped. There's no guarantee of that getting tapped, and then taking sells afterwards once we start to create resistance, break back into the range, etc., to make the move down towards 2007, 2011, right? So we can play it in a couple ways today. I'm gonna drop down to a smaller time frame. That's where my information will be at for me to take whatever position next. But in terms of the daily, it looks pretty clean today. It looks pretty straightforward and clean. And the idea is just that we're breaking back into the range here, right? So assuming that you're gonna create a top wick to drop down, again, your target for the day is gonna be 2009.884. Yesterday, we tapped the target at 2010. And today, I'm assuming that if you do come down to tap 2009.884, which is the breakout lows, you should continue to drive a bit further down, which then will take you down towards 2005-ish areas, right? So that's the daily. Again, any given moment, this thing could flip bearish. But looking left, I've noticed that before in the past, you drove down towards the bottom of the ranges, you were able to come up and create top wicks within these areas first, and then drove down, right? Like you see how this count just came down towards here and rejected, right? But these counts to the left here all came down after creating a steeper top wick, and it all made its way down a little further, which then took you, I think, down towards, in this case, this took you down towards here, and then this took you down towards all the way down here. So I'm assuming that, you know, in order to drop down a little steeper, you're gonna need to re-break the highs, which then will grab you into the areas of 2045 to 2050 areas, right? So could we get buys going up first before coming down? Potentially. So what I'm gonna do here is drop down to the 4. Yes, I was gonna say take a position. Drop down to the 4 here. You have 40 minutes left until the 4-hour closure. News came out. You're re-breaking the highs. So I believe that on a small time frame, we should have potential buys here, to be honest, to drive up. Yeah, so you have ranges going up here on the 4. I believe my only concern in the 4 is that there's barely a bottom wick on the current 4-hour opening, but you have 40 minutes left. So does that mean that we'll flip bearish before the 4 close, or will we just continue to drive until the 4 close? I can tell you one thing, that news did come out at 8:15, and now you have the comics open. If you rebroke the highs during news, I'm assuming that you should continue to drive further up, which in this case on a smaller time frame takes you up here towards 2034 here. Now let me just drop down to the 1 hour and see what's up here, because the 4-hour candle, there's not much information really. All you have here really is there's a resistance here, there's a support here, and ideally you would want to see the 4-hour close bullish in about 39 minutes here, and then you want to see a bottom wick before driving up. That's what you prefer, right? But I don't know if you have I don't know if you'll be closing where we are right now before the 4-hour close, or we'll be closing above the range for all I know, because there's volume right now coming in from the comics open and also from the rebreak of news highs, right? So dropping down to the 1 hour time frame, it looks like we did close bullish at support at 8 a.m. and we did close sort of back into this range here. Again, the only thing that's missing really is the fact that you have no bottom wick. That's my only concern really. The fact that you have no bottom wick, and if you were to drive up today towards, like, I'll say the first target before making the push down, I'm assuming that the first target area is gonna be 2045, 2050, which means that the range going up is decent. It's a pretty decent range to drive up, which then would mean that you would need some decent liquidity to drive up that steep, right? So we could be in a position to wait for 9 a.m., which is not too far from now, to be honest, chat. But if you do end up closing bullish on the 1 hour the way we are in the 4, again, the next 1 hour kind of opens up at 9. If it breaks the lows, we'll take quick entries there to drive up, because we're just anticipating the push up towards 2051, 2045, right? So that's not too bad of a play to grab. Let me see what the 30-15 shows here, because there's a slight chance we could grab positions before 9, but it is looking like it's going to be more of a 9 a.m. push for us today, to be honest. Just because there's news right here that came in. If there wasn't news, I'm assuming it would range, right? But with the news, it brings in volume, right? That's one thing that's guaranteed from news, the volume, but not the direction. Let me see. What could I use today? 31 hour 15. I think 30 is not too bad. Yeah, 30 is not too bad. I mean, you have a 15. Yeah, you have 30 closure in 8 minutes here. I thought it was 8:30 for some reason. Yeah, you have some time here. So let me just go ahead and mark this up as my resistance. Again, these levels don't really matter too much in terms of support and resistance here, because you're not like taking buys above or sells below. It's just to identify your ranges. So it doesn't really matter where exactly you put it, as long as you can identify your ranges, which in this case, I have my resistance marked up at 2038, 545. And then I have my support marked up at, I'll say, this range here, which is going to be at, if I can make this happen, 2022 499 here. So that's the bottom of the range that we have going on. Cool, perfect. Let me move down just a little bit right there. All right, I should move it up a little bit. Right there should be perfect. 2022.306. Cool. So you have that level, you have the resistance marked up and formed here. All that you have left now is a 30-minute closure to wait for, I'll say. So if we're not waiting for the 1 hour close, if we're in a position to not wait for the 1 hour close, then we at least gotta wait for the 30-minute close, I'll say, because you want to see a 30-minute candle close bullish. But my concern here really is if you're mirroring these ranges to the left here, right? Because right now, what I'm noticing, that it does look like we're mirroring these pushes to the left here, right? Which is this push here and this push here. You're gonna notice that every time you close bullish on a 30, you did reject within these areas here to the left, which was here. But the reason to why I don't think we may reject this time around is because the difference between this and currently this on the charts right now is the fact that these levels never broke the lows first before coming up. These are all bearish pushes down and then the rebreak of lows to play the ranges, right? But now that you had to push down yesterday and then you had to break back into the range, I'm assuming that with us closing bullish here, this should be a different scenario playing out this time around, where you should continue to pop up to fill the top of the range, because you already broke below the lows and now you should just complete the range fill before you have the bearish push for a day, because we're looking to tap into 2045 first to grab liquidity down, right? So this is why I believe that we may not reject off the 30 close. We may just continue to pop here. Now, I'll still wait for bottom wicks, obviously. I'll wait for a bottom wick. I'm not sure how steep it will be, but I'm looking at price in the 15. I'm assuming bottom wick area should be within these areas here. So we could be in a position to take a bottom wick entry to drive up. That won't be too bad of a play at all. It's just, will we come down to create a bottom wick on it first, right, on the new 30-minute candle. But looking pretty good in the 15, looking pretty good in the 30. And it looks like you do have range to drop up towards 2034 minimum, and then eventually 2038, 2040 to tap into those areas. Overall target obviously is 2045, but again, there's levels on the way up. There's things that price needs to tap into, reject off of, range out of. So we want to be in and out right where we believe that may happen, which in this case, you have a level that could be respected at 2038. So we're not looking to catch the runner completely towards 2045 just yet, even though that's the overall target. We're looking to just grab a small piece of the pie today, which is just the 2038. And then worst case, after 9 a.m., we'll look for more positions to drive up. All right. But wait for this 30 closure, wait for this 15, and then wait for a bottom wick. I'm assuming it's going to be sitting at like 27.181. But the thing is, chat, this is very key as well, and pay attention. You must come down first of all top wick, because if this happens here, then this will be invalid, right? If price comes up first, like if this is the first thing price does at 8:30, and then it comes down for a bottom wick, we can't take that. But we can take it if the first thing price does is come down and print a bottom wick, because then that'll be a bottom wick for us to rip back up to the top of the range, right? Like so. So that's my idea today for the positions on gold. Just wait for the 30 closure, and then a bottom wick should be pretty good for us to drive as long as we close above this range here. I think you have the resistance marked up at I'll prefer honestly a closure above, honestly I think any closure above like 2027 should be good, like 2027.675. The stronger the close, the better it would be, but you do want to have enough of a wick for you to drive up, obviously, in this case, right? But yeah, chat, that's the idea behind positions today. I believe that overall we're bearish today. Just a little recap, we're bearish today, and I am expecting us to drive down towards 2011 today to fill the daily wick because the data shows that we're bearish. But before driving down, I believe that you're going to need some decent liquidity to drive down, which in this case shows you to the left that it is going to be roughly at 2045, 2050 levels, which means that you can look for buys going up towards those levels first before taking the sells down. So the buys might be happening until 9, 9, 30, 10, and then 10 a.m., 11.